who does the land of Israel belong to?
Well, that's a tough question. If you're asking me, I would say both peoples have a claim to the land, both the Israelis and the Palestinians. The Israelis have a claim to the land because Jews lived in the country and periodically governed the country for over 1,000 years between 1200, say, BC and the first century AD. And then over the thousands of years in which Jews were exiled from the land of Israel, which is today called by most people Palestine, they longed to return to that country in which they had lived, in which Judaism and the Jewish people, in fact, were galvanized and formed. So there's a strong historical connection and claim to the land of Israel by the Jews. The Palestinians have a claim because Arabs have lived in the country since they conquered the country in the 7th century and then began to settle in the country and to convert the population in the 7th century and later, which was largely Jewish or pagan or Christian. They began to convert people and they became Muslims. And so in some way, Arabs have lived here, though never governing the country, since the 7th century AD. And in the past few hundred years, the majority of the population of Israel, the land of Israel, Palestine, was Arab. So in that sense, they're an indigenous people, even though, as I say, they conquered and came from somewhere else. They came from Arabia and conquered the land in the 7th century. But since then, they have more or less continuously lived here, even though not governing it, because it was governed by Mamluks, by Turks, by others, usually not by Arabs, certainly not after the 13th, 14th century.
So to now, do Arabs have a claim of the land?
Yes, I think they do, because they and their fathers and grandfathers and great-grandparents, by and large, lived here, and they would like to stay here, and they became politically conscious, the Arabs in Palestine, from the 1920s on, growingly became politically conscious, identified eventually as what is called Palestinians, and have a claim to rule the land in which they live.
Okay, so that brings us really to where we are today.
Well, it brings us to a conflict between two peoples who have claims, and I believe in some way rightful claims to the land, and they're in conflict over the who will be sovereign in the land.